Tsambica.
And I'm Voulla, and today we're going to be showing you a traditional way of how to make a Greek pasticcio.
The first thing we're going to do is we have preheated our oven to 180 fan force, and Voulla is going to start putting the pasta into the pot. We've already got some boiling water started. She's putting a couple of teaspoons of salt, and she is going to use a 500 gram penne pasta packet to start boiling.
The traditional pasta for pasticcio is a tubular ziti pasta, but penna is just as good and it's more accessible as well.
Yes, it's available anywhere. We're just going to pour the pasta in and give it a little stir. We're only going to cook it halfway, part cook it, because it will also cook when we put it in the oven. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to show you how we make the, it's a bolognese sauce, and it's the same sauce as you would use for lasagna. So I'm going to turn my stove, not too hot, just 3/4 heat. And I'm going to put a couple of tablespoons of olive oil and my onion. I love using lots of onion. You can use 1 or 2 onions. I use 2 smaller onions and a nice extra virgin first cold pressed olive oil. We're not going to cook the onions too much, just so they're a little bit clear.
I'm just going to sweat them a little bit.
Yes.
Yeah.
And the smell is amazing when onion is cooking in olive oil.
The sweetness of the onion, I feel,
Yes.
makes it a lot more flavorful.
Yes.
Yeah.
Because sometimes the tomatoes can be a little bit sour and we don't put sugar in the sauce. I'm going to put my garlic in now. I've peeled and finely diced about 4 large cloves of garlic. I'm going to start cooking them as well. I love the smell of onion and garlic cooking in olive oil.
It's a good basis.
Yes. And I'm going to turn my heat up a little bit and put the mince in. Now we have chosen to use half pork and half beef mince. It's 1 kilo of mince, so half a kilo of each, because that's what our grandmother used to do. But she also used to hand chop it. But we're not going to do that. We are going to cook the mince until the liquid has been fully absorbed by the pan. Use this spatula because it's a little bit tougher. We're going to keep stirring and breaking down our mince so you don't have big chunks in the sauce. And at the same time, the 2 different minces will blend together.
Again, it's a choice. If you prefer just using beef, you can.
And some people just use lamb for a richer, more heavier type of flavor and dish. Some people do use lamb, but you can use all beef or
It's a nice balance.
Yeah. And again, it does smell delicious when it's cooking. Our liquid is nearly absorbed. We don't let it absorb to the point where it's totally dry and it starts catching on the bottom. So it's ready to go now. I'm just going to turn my stove down a little bit, and I am going to put my passata sauce in. And what I also do is put a little bit of filtered water and rinse the bottle out.
That's always a good idea.
Yes.
No wasting.
No, I don't like wasting anything. We're going to put a couple of tablespoons of the tomato paste.
Which one are you using?
So I'm using the Valverde Italian tomato paste. We sell it at Earth Markets and I use a lot. So I always bring a big jar home and then just keep it in the fridge. Put a little bit of olive oil on top just to keep it fresh. And it lasts for ages. Just gonna give this a bit of a stir.
That's a really good trick actually with the tomato paste.
Yes.
That's a very good way of keeping it fresh in the fridge because you're not going to use the whole
at once. So I just put a little bit of olive oil on top and then every time I use it, it's always nice and fresh. It seals the top. Okay.
That's looking really good.
It is, and it smells really good too. I'm going to put a couple of teaspoons of salt. Not too much because with the parmesan and salt in everything else, that's enough. Some black pepper. Oh, and I love basil in this sauce. I put at least 3 tablespoons. And some cumin.
Gives it a more Greek smell.
Yes.
Doesn't it, the basil?
Yes. Give it another stir. We are going to put our bay leaves and our cinnamon stick and give it another stir.
I love the cinnamon in this.
Yes, as soon as I dropped it in, I could smell the cinnamon stick.
It's just that sweet, spicy sort of smell. Not too spicy, but just the aroma mixed in with the, the basil and the sauce and the mince. It's very, very delicious smelling.
Now that is starting to bubble. We're just going to turn it down a bit and let it simmer. Oh. I'll show you guys. It smells really good. So our pasta is now ready. I don't like using a strainer because I do like to leave a little bit of liquid in the pasta. It's nice for it not to go too dry and just a bit of moisture. Okay, so I'm going to use a pair of gloves and I'm going to hold the lid to the saucepan with a little bit of opening.
I'm just going to get out of the way. While Tsambica is doing that, I'm going to separate 2 eggs. Because what we're going to actually do, we're going to use the whole egg, but in different components of the dish. So we're going to actually mix the egg white through the pasta.
Yes, because it's good to have a little bit of stickiness within the pasta, just to keep it together. Our pasta is nice and moist, and there's no water sitting on the bottom.
Yes, that's nice.
Yes.
Put them in.
Yeah, go for it. Put them in. Nice. Yes, thank you. Yeah, that's perfect. And I'm just going to put a little bit of nutmeg. In with the pasta. Now, our sauce is ready and we're going to start assembling the the pasticcio now.
So what I usually do is just scoop some of the liquid and just, you know, pour it down the bottom. And as Tsambica said, it doesn't matter if it gets a little bit of mince in with it. I just like to spread just a little bit of the, you know, the moisture from the sauce on the bottom, because we're going to start off with the pasta. And the pasta, because it's halfway cooked, it'll need a little bit of moisture to keep cooking without getting too dry. Say when you think.
I think that's pretty good. So now we're going to put about 3/4 of the pasta on the bottom of the dish.
You can see from the heat of the pasta, some of that egg white has actually slightly cooked.
Yes.
But that's really good. That's, you know, that's really good because it's actually giving the pasta a little bit of creaminess.
And now we're going to put a layer of Parmesan cheese. Now what we have done with the Parmesan cheese, we grated our own. I actually put it in a high-speed blender like a NutriBullet, half a packet at a time, all cut up in cubes, and it takes virtually seconds. We sell this at Earth Markets. It's a Parmigiano Reggiano, and I love it. I always love grating my Parmesan from scratch rather than buying the already grated Parmesan.
I mean, if you have your favorite, you know, Parmesan cheese, you know, by all means use that.
Yep. And also the Parmesan will keep the pasta together.
Yes, because imagine this when it's cooked, and it slightly melts a little bit. Very nice.
And we are going to use some fresh nutmeg and just grate it over the Parmesan.
I love nutmeg in this.
Yes, same. It's the key ingredient, really.
Yes.
You can also use the already grated nutmeg, but we just love using some fresh nutmeg. Again, our grandmother used to use fresh. Okay, now Voulla's going to put the rest of the sauce inside the...
Okay, so I'm pretty much going to use all of it. I'm going to start, yes, we're going to take that bay leaf out, and somewhere in there, there's a cinnamon stick, which we are also going to find and take out. There it is. Yeah. So I'm going to start by scooping it first and sort of spreading it with my spoon, and then I'm going to use a spatula just to get those last little bits. And what's important to do is, as you're spreading it, slightly press it into the pasta so that it,
all the juices,
yes,
and some of the mince,
and it fills the holes as well. Looks like it's going to be just the right amount as well for this pan.
Yeah.
What size pan is this, Tsambica?
I'm guessing it's about 30 by 40 centimeters. It's good to have a little bit of room on top when you finish, because it does bubble over a little bit and the sauce comes up the sides. So if it's too full after you've put your bechamel sauce in, would you like me to hold it up and use your spatula? Yes, so if you have it right to the top, it could bubble over a little bit.
Yes, good idea. Now, I'm just going to use this one.
We're going to try and take all the sauce off the pan with a spatula. A silicone spatula is the best, so that we can use the same pan without washing it for our bechamel sauce.
Beautiful.
There you go.
So now we're just going to spread that. You are going to get, you know, every now and then little bits of pasta sticking out. That's absolutely
But that's
fine,
okay.
because that's the next thing we're going to put on top anyway. So I'm just going to show everybody, what it's looking like, so you can
Oh,
see.
that looks good.
Okay. So
And then we'll
now
put the rest
we're
of
gonna
the
put the
pasta.
rest of the pasta.
Just one layer on top. Now we could have put a little bit less on the bottom and a little bit more on the top, but that's okay, isn't it? It looks pretty good.
I
Like
actually
that.
quite like sparse pasta on the top. Actually, as much as you like, I love seeing the layers in a pasticcio. In a way, I love when there's a little bit of a blend together.
Yeah.
Because then the flavors are actually much nicer to enjoy, you know, when it is that way.
Yeah. All right. Well, I'm going to put some more parmesan on top, because it is pasta after all, so we need to put some parmesan. What do you think? That's enough, isn't it?
Lovely. Yes.
We're going to use the rest for the bechamel sauce. Again, I'm going to grate some nutmeg, because it's the key ingredient to pasticcio.
Smells so nice.
Smells amazing. Okay, we're going to put this aside. Up to you.
Thank you. So this is the actual pan that we made the sauce in. So you can see traces of the sauce still in there. That's absolutely fine. No need to use, you know, other pans and dirty more dishes that we have to wash.
No.
So what I have here, I have got some butter. Say around about 200 grams of butter.
I use natural, real butter, not margarine, not soft butter, real butter. We cut it in advance and we left it at room temperature to go a little bit soft. So it melts a lot quicker in the pan without burning or without the milk separating from the fat.
Yes, and I actually find that using real butter, you get that rich taste
Yes.
as well.
And the nice smell. Real butter smells so much better than the fake stuff.
So I'm just assisting this to melt a little bit. Now it's very important, getting the balance right with the bechamel sauce is a little bit nerve-wracking, I must admit.
Yes.
Trying
You
to
don't
get
want
it.
it to go lumpy.
That's right. So what I normally do is make sure that the butter is completely melted. So I literally let that happen, and I sort of stir it as I'm assisting it to do that.
You want it to stay nice and creamy, not start going oily.
Using a wide base pan is also very good for this because it sort of spreads out a little bit more, so it's much easier to control the sauce. You can see now the butter is just about melted, so I don't want it to overcook. I have got here about half a cup of just plain flour, so I'm going to start pouring that in a minute. So, okay, we're just about ready. So I'm going to start pouring in my my flour, and I'm going to actually increase the speed in which I'm stirring, and I'm actually just looking for, I'm adding the flour in slowly. I'm not adding it all at once, because what I'm looking for is a really creamy consistency, a thick cream consistency. And it's very easy at this point for it to get very lumpy. So I'm just going around the corners, just sort of scraping it, and see I've used pretty much.
Now I was going to say, if you are gluten intolerant, you can use a gluten-free pasta. There's so many options in the market now, and even at Earth Markets we do sell some gluten-free pasta, which looks and tastes exactly the same as the real pasta. And you can use some gluten-free flour, because they're the only two things that we use in the pasticcio that is not gluten-free.
That's right.
Now we are going to slowly add this milk. We're just using the Mullany Dairy's milk because we do sell that at Earth Markets, and we are going to slowly pour it in because we don't want our sauce to go cold.
I just want to show everyone the consistency of this. See how creamy it is? That's what we're looking for. So there is that risk. If the heat is up too high, it can clump up and actually become too
and there's
dry.
No lumps in there.
There's no lumps. So the
would you like me to pour?
Start pouring slowly. And see, I'm just gonna start stirring to stir this. And we've had the milk also sit in room temperature as well.
Because you don't want the milk too cold, because you don't want to have a hot pan and cold milk. If you do forget to take it out of the fridge, or if it is cold, just heat it up a little bit in a saucepan. That's what I do if I forget to.
Okay, so I can see that thickening up now. It's time for the next lot of milk. Yep. This is the trick.
It's a bit of an art to making the sauce,
isn't
it?
And it is, as I said, it's very nerve-wracking. No matter how many times you make bechamel sauce, there's always that chance of having the heat too high or using a bit too much flour.
And you don't want the heat too high because you don't want it to stick to the bottom. It does burn. Flour burns quite quickly.
And you've got to trust in the process that it is actually, over time in the heat, it's going to thicken up.
Yeah. So it's starting to thicken up again.
And so we're ready for the next. And we can increase the amount of milk each time as well. And sometimes, you think, oh, it's running, maybe I need to add more flour. You don't need to. Once your base is there, it actually, with the heat and over time, it'll thicken up. And keep in mind as well that once it's all cooked and you've turned it off, it will actually continue to thicken up because it's warm from
it sets.
It sets. Yes, that's right. We leave this step till last because once the bechamel sauce is made, it does form a bit of a cream, thick layer on top. So we want it to be as freshly made as possible so that we can actually pour it on the very top. I think it's ready for the next lot of milk. We're at the safety point now where there's no way this will get lumpy.
No.
Because we've gone through the initial building up process and now it's just a matter of, you know, just letting it bubble up and stir. So even if you took your eyes off it for a minute and let it sort of simmer and bubble, it's not going to get lumpy, but you've just got to obviously keep an eye on it because bechamel sauce
Sticks to the bottom, doesn't it?
it sticks to the bottom and it also thickens up, like, you know, from 1 minute to the next, it just builds up.
Yeah.
Where it's tricky, I find, is around this corner, around the corner of the pan, because it can get stuck, you know, in that groove and burn, and that's why I'm consistently just, you know, using my whisker just to scrape any, you know, any bits that might have gotten stuck into there out. Once this is at a consistency that we are happy with, we're going to take it off the heat and add the rest of our ingredients into it. I'm going to use the egg yolks from the eggs we used earlier to mix into the pasta.
Might give it a bit.
Yeah, maybe break them up a little bit, and we're also going to use some nutmeg. You can never have too much nutmeg in a pasticcio. And then our remainder of the parmesan cheese. And again, keep in mind that those components will actually thicken it up even more, you know, because the cheese will melt, the egg will cook into it. You don't want it too thick, not too runny enough for it to spread, because you will see in a minute how, you know, we're actually going to, you know, use it on the top, for the top layer of the pasticcio. See, now that's bubbling.
Oh, that looks beautiful. The main ingredient of the bechamel sauce is the cheese, isn't it, Voulla?
Just about, yes. just about ready.
Yeah, it looks amazing.
Then we're gonna take it off the heat, as we don't want it to cook any more than that. Now the next thing I'm gonna pour the rest of the cheese in here. Now I'm putting the cheese in first because we need it to melt. So that's the first thing. And then we just give it a good whisk. Then I'm going to put our nutmeg in next. So I'm just going to use some of the already ground nutmeg. And then the next thing we're going to use is our egg yolks. Now I'm just going to pour them in slowly.
Yeah, you don't want them to cook.
So, and okay, so our sauce is ready.
Thank you. I'll turn this way, Voulla, and you can just pour it and then I'll scrape the last little bit off.
So we're just going to pour it on the very top.
Oh, that's going between the cracks nicely. You might just give it a bit of a shake. I think that looks really good, doesn't it? Looks amazing. I think just a little bit of nutmeg on top.
Yes.
And then we're ready to put it in the oven. That's enough, isn't it?
I think so, yeah.
Okay.
Looking good. So this will stay in the oven for
45 minutes, and you can keep an eye on it. As long as it gets a nice brown color on top, then it's ready.
And you don't need to cover it.
No.
You just leave it fully uncovered, because as it's internally cooking, the top layer will be browning, and
Yes.
you want that sort of, you know, browny color
Yep.
on the very top.
Yeah, and it will all just bond together. I think our pasticcio is now ready. I am going to take it out of the oven, and it should have a nice golden color. It smells delicious. Oh, yum. We're just gonna let it sit and cool for about 10-15 minutes, so that when we cut it, it doesn't fall apart. It's got a nice square shape. It looks
awesome.
amazing. Yes, it's beautiful.
Yes, I really love how some of the pasta on the very top gets a bit crunchy.
Yes.
You know, it's got that texture
Yes.
into it, as well as the flavour. I can't wait
It looks,
to...
yeah, I can't wait to try it.
Yum.
Okay, our
Looks great.
pasticcio is ready. Oh my God, it looks amazing. Smells amazing. We let it rest for 10 minutes. So then now we're gonna cut it. We're just gonna use a silicone spatula so that we don't use a knife to cut into our dish. And what we're doing is we're just gonna break the seal around the edges. And it is coming away quite easily. So you can cut the whole thing at once if you want to serve it on a platter. If you have, you know, a big amount of guests, that are coming for dinner, or you can just cut piece by piece.
Yep, well you can pre-cut it and leave it in the dish and people can just scoop out their portions. Ooh.
It actually feels really good.
That mushy sound.
Yeah, no, it actually smells really good. Just gonna take one of the middle pieces. Oh, here we go. Oh, yum. And you have a nice piece. It's all dry inside. There's no too much juice or mush. It's all come, you know, together. You could leave it a little bit longer to sort of cool down so that you can get it out in one piece. It smells amazing. Yes.
Well done.
Good job.
Very
Thank you
nice.
for